Hi, this is Doug Howard, President of Growth Team Strategies, here with Kathi Fleck, one of our senior consultants, with another episode of Selling the Dream, our podcast for people thinking about maybe one day selling their business and the thoughts that we have about things people should be thinking of well in advance of that. So, Kathi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day in Texas. It's wonderful here.
See, we felt a lot like Texas last night. There's the sound of chainsaws in the background. We had a tornado that came through the backyard, missed the house by about, 7 or 8 feet. And, we put on a little country music and had a little barbecue and pretended we were in Texas. So,
Good for you. Do you have your hat and boots?
I did have my hat and boots. Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So today we're going to talk about something that we've touched on, I think, in prior episodes, but there's an ever evolving conversation, and that's about the different people that we might want to get involved when we're thinking about selling a business. And one of the reasons that's relevant, I think, for our conversation is because as we continue to grow and develop the podcast, we're reaching out now to folks that we think might be guests that we could have that could add a little bit more detail, a little more perspective. So, Kathi, I know we've talked about sort of the broker and the attorney and the accountant. Those are kind of the inner circle of the selling process. But one that comes to mind, I know that we've discussed a little bit, is the idea of a financial planner, right? Yeah. And so, it's interesting because a lot of times I think financial planners are people we think about as people handling our retirement. And to a great extent, that's true. That's where a lot of times we encounter them. But much like any other industry, there's a wide range of what people do and who they do it for. And I think a very proactive financial planner can be an integral part of the sales process. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yes, I think a lot of people don't really think about how far out they need to save money or have money invested. And so if they have a financial planner and they're already planning for the future, that's a big help. But if they're ready to sell the business and they don't really know what they need to live on, I don't know, might be 20, 30 years, depending upon when they sell the business. What kind of money do they need? So part of it is planning on a personal level. But just because you're ready to sell the business doesn't necessarily mean that you're financially ready to sell the business. So that whole part can really play in as far as what do they really need so they're going to get the best return when they sell the business.
Yeah, and I think, when people go through the financial planning process, it's a little bit of an eye-opener too, in terms of, life expectancy and the fact that interest rates have been very low, so investment return has been relatively low, and what taxes takes out of things. And, generally I find when people go have that first meeting with a financial planner, the number that they think they need to retire and the number they actually need to retire sometimes can be drastically different.
Right.
And so, if someone's factoring in the residual value of the business as part of that equation, then first of all, the financial planner can shed a lot of light on what range we need that to be in. But secondly, we can shed a lot of light on what a financial planner is looking at as to whether or not that's even practical, right? So, did you work with a financial planner when you had your business, when you were going through your transition?
Well, I had a financial planner to help with the personal end, but I did not work with a financial planner as far as incorporating the business sale. So it was, I had some conversations with different, I have a couple of financial planners, but I had some conversations with him, but it wasn't planned that I needed to sell the business for X dollars in order to be able to finance my future. I just had a number in mind, plus I had a valuation done, and I knew that that number would work for me. So it was just to make my life more comfortable than having to really be frugal with my money.
Yeah. See, every time I come up with a number for me, I see another car I'd like or another place I'd like to go visit. And so I don't actually think there's a number. I think but I think for some folks, it becomes a very finite thing, right? And so, part of it though is this whole notion of how well your advisors are even working with each other, right? And so, like for instance, a financial planner, what we're going to yield after we sell a business that we can apply to whatever amount of money we need also depends very heavily on the tax structure of the deal and what we're going to
Right.
net to taxes, right? And sometimes those things aren't even discussed, and sometimes they're discussed in such separate silos
Yeah.
that you may hear something over here and something over there. What I like to do is get some of those folks together so that the financial
Mm-hmm.
planner hears what the accountant's thinking, the accountant hears what the attorney's thinking, because I don't even know the questions to ask when I'm the business owner, right? I want them to
Yeah.
be brainstorming and saying, oh, well, if you're thinking about that, maybe you need to be thinking about this. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Well, I think a lot of times people are thinking about how much they spend today, which will
Right.
be totally different from what goes on 10 years from now with inflation. But then the other part is, as we're bringing money in as a business owner, we're also spending money more easily. Let's say like the new car or the trip
Yeah.
or the wardrobe that they have or the entertainment that they have for the business part of it. I was talking to another friend and I kind of realized this myself too. I sold my business 2 years ago, but it takes a little time to settle down on that spending because you're kind of used to it. And you can't just go from whatever you're spending as a business owner and bringing money in to suddenly just living on Social Security, for example. You can't go that far. It's not. It just doesn't seem to pan out that way. So I think there has to be some foresight in it, and if they could get the financial planner together and the accountant, what kind of money are they going to have to pay in taxes? How's that going to impact everything else? And then what should they do with the money as far as investment goes, and how
Yeah.
risky do they want to invest?
Yeah, it makes a big difference, right? So when you look
Mhm.
for a financial planner, is there anything in particular that you looked for when you had the person you worked with? Or because I always think there's certain things that I want to be true of a financial planner that either I work with or a client works with. Um, you know,
Well, I think you have to have a like-mindedness because there are lots of ways of investing or having financial planners. And there's a philosophy with a group of advisors that I have that you really invest in something that you know. So if you're going to take your money and put it in the stock market and sit back and hope that it's going to grow, you're going to have those ebbs and flows. And are you willing to take that kind of risk? Or if you're in the construction field like I was, does it make more sense to invest in real estate and rental houses and something that you know that you can control a little bit more? So I think partly it's important to know how risk averse you might be, as well as what you can control and you can't control, and like
sure.
mindedness of investors.
Yeah, and I think there's got to, like you said, there's got to be a good meeting of minds with any professional, right? I mean, when
Hmm.
people tell me like, "Oh, I hate meeting with my financial planner or my attorney because I don't really understand what they're saying," it's like you get the wrong one, right? Like like
Hmm.
like really good, very talented, brilliant professionals have got to be able to communicate with you and connect with you, right? And I
Hmm.
always tell people if I was going to have brain surgery, which some people have suggested might be helpful for me, I don't know, but I would want a brain surgeon that was absolutely brilliant, but also could explain things in a way that I would
Hmm.
understand what choices I'm making, in an intelligent way.
I
And
agree.
so I think that's really important when we get into some of the stuff, because for some people,
Hmm.
it's just like, I don't know, they start using certain terms and, I get very uncomfortable and I hate those meetings. And it's like, yeah, but you're being asked to make decisions
Right.
and ultimately you bear the responsibility. And of course, you bear the
Yeah.
consequence.
And
You
and
know,
I really agree with that because I don't really understand those concepts as readily as others might. And so I have to ask the questions and say, okay, what does this mean and how's this going to impact me down the road?
yeah,
And, do you want to invest all of this money in this area or do you want to spread it out? There's just a lot of different variables. And then you've got to be able to count on that to take you through because there may not be any other income if you're not going to take another job or be another business owner.
yeah, no, that's right. Well, and I think there's a couple different models for financial planners too, or wealth managers. I know there's different terms used for them, but one is they don't really charge you a fee and they just make commission on investments that you make. And
Mm-hmm.
the other is someone that would charge you a fee to do a financial plan and really is, not, it's not what you pay them is not tied to any decisions you make. And for me, I think that's the version that, even though it's nice to say, well, it doesn't cost me anything. It's just they get paid for moving my money. I think it is really important to make sure that the person doing that plan in that moment, and this isn't to say other, financial advisors can't be good advisors just because they get a commission, but in that moment, I think it's something that you really want somebody to take a very objective look at.
I
And to me,
agree.
I think it's money well spent to say, no, I would want you to get somebody that is going to charge you a fee, look at it objectively, and really doesn't have any interest at all in which of the options you choose.
And the other part of that is, how good are they? How do you really know how good they are? So if they don't have any vested interest in it, or those, so I was, after I sold my business, I did meet with I have two financial advisors. One's in Texas and one is out of state. And so I spoke with the one out of state first, and he had some suggestions. And then when I brought them to my Texas advisor, he had some better returns than the other one did, because the other one didn't have access to some of these. So I think it's kind of like going to a doctor or anybody else. You've really got to be comfortable with who you're choosing and what their advice might be. So you're putting your life savings or your life money into that.
Yeah, and I think you got to be careful too that it's too big a decision. And I like the way you equate it to, a doctor or something like that, because you wouldn't go to a networking group usually and say, like, who should I have do my heart surgery, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get those kinds of inputs from somebody at a different level that has a different understanding. And I think sometimes when I ask people why they're with somebody that advises them, it's because they did meet at, a networking thing, or they went to kindergarten together, or some other, factor that doesn't.
They pick the big box ones. Like, I don't want to say names, but they pick those which may not necessarily be the best options either. Or maybe they want bigger portfolios than this individual has.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So I think when we look at it, I think it's something someone should do due diligence, but I definitely think they should consider a financial planner or a wealth advisor as part of an integral part of the team. And frankly, even with the consulting that we do, growth planning and those for even before people are thinking about selling, I always tell people I would much rather have you have already talked to somebody about financial planning, even if you're very early on in your career, because it gives us context to say, what does this business need to produce for you, to be in a good place? So now, I imagine some of the people listening, especially in the way that we'll, probably put some of this out, may actually be the financial planners themselves, right? And so I think it's important for a financial planner to give some thought to, when you're working with someone in the mode of selling their business or that kind of thing, what are some things you think that they should be thinking about if they're going to come at this the right way?
What should a financial planner be thinking about?
Yeah.
Well, I think the longevity. I mean, not just putting together a stock or an annuity or a suggestion. I think they should be talking about long term and what that person needs to live on, and then back it up. I think that's what we've been doing in the remodeling peer groups that we have, is what does somebody need to live on? And then you can determine what your price is going to be, how much business you need to have in order to have a good lifestyle. So I think a financial planner could take that same approach and really look at things objectively. Then that way they could advise with the monies that they have, or when they sell the business, or even the time frame of selling the business. Just because somebody wants to sell, say, at age 60, doesn't mean that they're financially ready, and maybe they need to do some things to get themselves prepared and have to work another 3 or 5 years in order to be more financially secure.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. So I think as we go forward, financial planners or wealth management folks, are the kinds of folks that it'd be nice to have maybe one or two of them come on, talk a little bit about how they approach some of this. But I think they're an integral part of the team. I'd add them to our list of broker, attorney, accountant. I think we'll identify some others. But it is one area that, we always, I always like to say with selling a business, right, you only get one chance to make a last impression, right? That last dollar amount, it is what it is. Well, to me, that correlates very closely with the fact that that's also where it plugs into that financial plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whatever you needed it to be, that's what it is. At the point you do it, it's either there or it's not,
Or you have to make adjustments in your lifestyle.
Yeah, or go back to work or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, but if you're making assumptions that it's going to be there, I think that needs to be an important part of the discussion.
Or you can expect costs and prices to stay the same, which we know they're not going to. I mean, the cost of everything has gone up and will continue to go up. And so we have to be able to have enough money to cover that as time goes on.
Yep, no, that's exactly right. All right, well, Kathi, good discussion. I think this will be something for people to be thinking about. Certainly, if people are out there and they are just starting the process or they're in the process and have not identified a financial planner or wealth manager or done any of that kind of planning at all, I would stop right now. It's something that doesn't take a tremendous amount of time to at least get the ball rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Reach out to somebody that whose opinion you respect, that have been down through the process, right? Just,
mm-hmm.
And get that going, because I think it needs to be part of the equation.
I do too.
All right.
Give you a lot of security.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Kathi, thanks so much. And we'll be back in another week with another episode of Selling the Dream.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you for listening to the Selling the Dream podcast, starring Doug Howard and Kathi Fleck. Both Doug and Kathi have built and sold successful businesses and hope this podcast will help other small business owners do the same. Tune in every week to hear more tips for increasing the value of your company so you get the highest return for your years of hard work when it comes time to sell or transition your business. Can't wait till next week? Check out our website for more information at www.growththemes.com.